I didn't take the job because I thought it would be scary. I took it because it was easy money, short-term, and overnight, exactly the kind of work nobody else wanted. And the first night, when the hotel was empty and the lobby lights were dimmed, I honestly believed I'd spent 8 hours watching nothing happen. Then I saw someone on the 4th floor. Not on any guest list. Not on any schedule. And not on a single camera I could replay afterward. The hotel was called the Westbridge Suites. It wasn't a famous place, and it wasn't a dump either. It sat just off the highway, a few miles outside a mid-sized city, close enough for business travelers, far enough that it never felt busy unless there was a conference in town. I'd driven past it 100 times without thinking about it. A boxy building with reflective windows, a small parking lot, and a lobby you could see into from the road. The kind of place you check into, sleep, and forget. The only reason I noticed it at all was because my cousin's friend managed the property. He mentioned they were between overnight staff and needed someone reliable for a couple of weeks to monitor the building after hours. It wasn't security in the Hollywood sense. No patrols, no confrontation. Just sitting at the front desk, keeping an eye on the cameras, answering the occasional late check-in call, and logging anything unusual. The hotel was technically open, but occupancy was almost nothing. The manager told me they'd had a pipe issue on the 3rd floor and were doing repairs. Most bookings had been pushed to a sister property. The few guests they did have were being put on the 1st and 2nd floors. That sounded perfect to me. I was between jobs. I'd been doing gig work, odd shifts, anything to cover rent. When he told me it paid cash, I didn't ask many questions. He gave me a quick tour in the early evening before my first overnight. The lobby smelled like citrus cleaner and something faintly sweet, like cheap air freshener trying too hard. The lighting was soft, warm, and a little too dim for the size of the space. There were 2 sitting areas with outdated couches, a breakfast nook with stacked chairs, and a long front desk that looked nice from a distance but had scuffed corners up close. Behind the desk was a small office with a wall-mounted camera monitor system. 16 feeds. Some were exterior, parking lot, entrances, loading door. Some were interior, lobby, hallways, elevator, stairwells. He showed me the binder of procedures. If a guest called, answer. If someone tried to check in, verify their reservation and key them in. If the fire alarm went off, call the fire department and then call him. If I saw something truly suspicious, call the non-emergency police line. He said it all like it was routine. Like it had happened before. Then, right before he left, he paused behind the desk and lowered his voice. "One thing," he said. "Don't go upstairs unless you have to. Especially 3rd and 4th. I looked at him. 3rd floor is the pipes, right? He nodded. Yeah. It's just messy. We've got some doors open up there, equipment, crews coming and going during the day. At night, there's no reason for you to be up there. What about 4th? He hesitated just long enough for me to notice. Then he shrugged. 4th floor is closed. No guests. No staff. We're not using it for now. For repairs. Something like that, he said. Then he smiled again, quick and forced, and clapped me lightly on the shoulder. You'll be fine. It's mostly quiet. Bring a book. He left at 10:45 p.m. At 10:58, I was alone in a hotel that felt like it was holding its breath. The first hour was exactly what I expected. Silence. A few cars passing on the highway outside. The soft cycling of the air conditioning. The occasional distant clunk from the ice machine down the hall. I made myself a cup of coffee from the lobby machine. It tasted like it had been sitting in the pot since morning. I drank it anyway. I checked the reservation system. 4 guests total. All checked in. None scheduled to arrive late. I flipped through the camera feeds, mostly out of boredom. Parking lot, empty. Front entrance, empty. Back entrance, empty. Lobby, me, leaning on the counter like someone waiting for a bus. Hallway cameras showed long stretches of carpet and closed doors. The lights were dimmed in the hallways too, not fully off, just lowered. The kind of lighting that makes shadows feel longer than they should. At 12:37 a.m., the elevator camera caught movement. The elevator doors opened on the first floor. A man stepped out. He was tall, wearing a dark jacket and a cap pulled low. He walked into the lobby and out of frame. A moment later, he appeared on the lobby camera, headed toward the front desk. I stood up straighter, automatically professional. But he didn't come to the counter. He stopped near the sitting area by the window, looking around slowly, like he was taking in the space. Then he walked toward the hallway that led to the guest rooms. I watched him on the hall camera as he passed the vending machines and disappeared toward the rooms. No luggage. No backpack. No key card in hand. That wasn't necessarily suspicious. Guests sometimes came in light. Some people left things in their car. Still, something about how he moved felt deliberate. Not rushed. Not lost. Like he already knew where he was going. I checked the system for late arrivals. Nothing. I sat back down. 15 minutes passed. No calls. No movement. At 12:58, the elevator doors opened again. The same man stepped in. He looked down at the floor the entire time, his face hidden by the brim of his cap. The doors closed. The elevator camera cut to the interior feed, the small cramped space lit by a harsh overhead light. He stood perfectly still. No phone. No fidgeting. Just hands at his sides. The elevator display above the doors showed a red number. 1, then it changed. 2, then it changed again. 3, and then 4, the doors opened on the 4th floor. The hallway camera for the 4th floor should have been dark. That's what I'd been told. Closed floor. No guests. But the camera feed was active. Dimly lit, but active. The man stepped out and turned left, walking down the hall until he disappeared around the corner. I felt a small tightening in my stomach. Maybe maintenance was using that floor. Maybe the manager hadn't told me everything. I waited for him to come back down. He didn't. I checked the feed list again. 4th floor hallway, active. 4th floor stairwell, active. 4th floor west hallway, active. Why would a closed floor have 3 working cameras? My instinct was to call the manager, but it was after 1 in the morning and I didn't want to look stupid over a guest wandering. So I did what the job required. I watched. At 1:11, the man appeared on the 4th floor west hallway feed. He wasn't walking now. He was standing in front of a door. Just standing there, close enough that his shoulder nearly touched it. His head slightly tilted, like he was listening. He stayed that way for a full minute. Then he stepped back. And knocked. Not loud. Not aggressive. 3 slow knocks. He waited. No one answered. He knocked again. 2 knocks this time. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled something out. Not a key card. Too small. He held it against the door handle, down near the lock. A second later, the door opened. Not wide. Just enough for him to slip inside. He did. The door shut behind him. I stared at the screen. My mouth felt dry. That wasn't normal guest behavior. And it definitely wasn't normal for a floor that was supposedly closed. I grabbed the binder and flipped to the procedure for suspicious activity. It was vague. If you observe suspicious behavior, contact management or law enforcement. I looked at the phone. Then I looked back at the 4th floor camera feed. The hallway was empty again. The door he entered was closed. No signs of disturbance. Maybe he had a master key. Maybe he was staff. But if he was staff, why hide his face? Why knock? Why listen at the door? I sat there, trying to convince myself it was nothing. That I was tired. That this was what overnight work did, made ordinary things feel strange. At 1:23, the elevator descended from the 4th floor. The man stepped out on the 1st floor. He moved faster now. Not running. But purposeful. He crossed the lobby, paused near the front desk as if considering approaching me, then turned toward the front entrance. He stopped at the doors. Looked outside. Then looked up toward the lobby camera. Straight at it. Straight at me. I felt my spine tighten. The camera was too far away to show his eyes clearly, but I knew he was looking into it. He held that gaze for a second, then pushed through the doors and disappeared into the parking lot. I rewound the footage. The system allowed short replays. I scrubbed back to the moment he looked up at the camera. The frame stuttered. Pixelated. And then froze. The screen flashed a static-like ripple, a distortion that ran across the image like a wave. Then it resumed. In the resumed footage, the man did not look up at the camera. He simply walked out. I rewound again. Same thing. Every time I reached the moment where he should have looked up. Distortion. Skip. No gaze. I sat back, suddenly aware of my own breathing. That was the first time I felt something close to fear. Not because of the man. Because of the gap. Like the system was editing itself. The rest of the night was quiet. No more movement on the cameras. No calls from rooms. No doors opening. Just empty hallways and the soft hum of air conditioning. At 3:40 a.m., I heard a sound from somewhere deeper in the building. It wasn't loud. It wasn't a bang or a crash. It was a thin, mechanical tone, like the start of an intercom message that never came. A brief chime. Then silence. I sat up straight. The hotel had a paging system for emergencies, but I didn't know how to use it. The manager hadn't mentioned it. I checked the cameras. No movement. At 3:43, the elevator camera flickered. The interior feed blinked black, then returned. Inside the elevator, someone was standing facing the corner. Not the man from earlier. This person was shorter, wearing a light-colored shirt. The camera angle was high, looking down. I couldn't see their face. They stood very still, like they were waiting for the elevator to move. But the doors weren't closing. The elevator display didn't change. The doors remained open. And the hallway camera for the 1st floor, outside the elevator, showed an empty hall. No person. No open doors. No one standing there. Just empty carpet and dim lights. I stared at the mismatch. Elevator interior, someone present. Hallway exterior, nobody. I blinked hard, expecting my eyes to correct themselves. Nothing changed. My mouth went dry again. I moved the mouse, clicked the elevator feed to enlarge it. The figure in the elevator didn't move. The light shirt looked almost washed out. Like it wasn't fully solid. I glanced at the hallway feed again. Empty. The doors were closed in that feed. Closed. But in the elevator feed, the doors were open. I sat very still. I don't know why, but I felt like if I moved too quickly, if I made too much noise, I would somehow make it worse. I checked the clock. 3:44, the elevator feed suddenly snapped back to normal. Doors closed. Empty interior. The hallway feed showed the doors closed as well. No flicker. No distortion. Nothing unusual. Like it had never happened. I stared at the screens for a long time. Tried to convince myself it was a glitch. A feed delay. A dropped frame. Anything. At 3:52, the fourth floor west hallway feed went to static for 2 seconds. Then returned. The same door the man had entered earlier, door 417, was open. Just a crack. And darkness leaked out like ink. Not literal. Not exaggerated. Just a deep black that seemed too thick compared to the hallway lighting. I leaned closer. The door handle moved slightly. As if someone inside was holding it. Slowly pulling. Then stopping. Then pulling again. The crack widened. I felt my heart begin to pound. I checked the guest list again. No one was assigned to any room on the fourth floor. No one. The crack widened another inch. And I heard it. Not through the cameras. Through the building. A soft, distant sound, like a door hinge dragging. The realization hit me in a slow wave. The cameras weren't the only thing showing me this. It was happening here. In the same building. Above me. I stood up, quietly, as if the building might hear the chair roll. My hands shook as I reached for the phone. I didn't call the manager. I called the non-emergency police line. My voice sounded calm when I spoke, which surprised me. I gave the address. Told them I was monitoring a hotel overnight. Told them I saw someone enter a restricted floor earlier. Told them a door on the fourth floor now appeared to be opening on its own. The dispatcher asked if there were any guests in danger. I said, I don't know. I hated that answer. She told me to stay on the line. I turned the camera feed on the fourth floor up slightly. The door was open now. Not fully. But enough to show the edge of the room inside. It looked empty. No light. No furniture visible. Just blackness. And then. Something moved near the floor. Not a person stepping out. More like a shift in the darkness itself. A subtle change in shape. Like someone crawling slowly toward the doorway, staying low. My stomach dropped. The dispatcher asked me to repeat what I was seeing. I told her. I heard my own voice describing it, calm and precise, and it sounded unreal. But it was right there on the screen. The movement stopped. Then, very slowly, the door began to close. Not slam. Not snap shut. It closed gently. As if whoever was inside didn't want to make a sound. The latch clicked softly. The hallway was empty again. My hands were cold. The dispatcher told me officers were on the way. I stayed behind the desk, staring at the monitors, feeling like if I looked away, something would change again. At 4:11, the lobby doors opened. 2 officers walked in. Relief hit me so hard my legs felt weak. They approached the desk, calm and professional. I explained what I'd seen. The man at 1 o'clock. The weird distortions in playback. The elevator glitch. The door on the 4th floor opening. They listened without interrupting. One of them asked, "Are you sure the 4th floor is closed?" "Yes," I said. "That's what I was told." They asked to see the camera feeds. I showed them. Everything looked normal. Empty halls. Closed doors. No sign of anyone. The older officer nodded slowly. "Let's take a look," he said. I didn't want to go upstairs. But I also didn't want to stay alone again. So I followed, staying behind them like a shadow. We took the elevator. It felt too quiet inside. No music. Just the soft whir and a faint clicking sound from the cables. When we reached the 4th floor, the doors opened onto the same hallway I'd been watching. Off-white walls. Dim lights. Carpet that smelled faintly stale. The officers stepped out. I stayed near the elevator. They walked toward the west hallway. I pointed. That way. As we moved, I noticed something that made my skin tighten. The hallway was colder than the lobby. Not dramatically. Just enough that you could feel it on your face. The older officer checked doors as he walked. Most were locked. Some had printed "out of service" signs. We reached door 417. It looked normal. Closed. No sign it had been opened. The younger officer tested the handle. Locked. The older officer knocked. No answer. He knocked again, louder. Still nothing. He tried the master key card they carried. It beeped red. He frowned. Tried again. Red. "This isn't taking it," he said quietly. The younger officer radioed something back to dispatch. The older officer leaned closer to the door. Put his ear near it. Listened. I held my breath. He straightened and looked at me. "What exactly did you see?" he asked. I swallowed. The door opened. And something moved near the floor. Like it didn't want to be seen. He stared at the door again. Then he said something I wasn't expecting. "Can you pull up the camera feed right now?" "I don't have it on my phone," I said. "It's in the office downstairs." He nodded once. Then he did a slow sweep of the hallway. His gaze stopped on something. He crouched near the baseboard, right in front of door 417. He pointed at the carpet. There were marks. Not footprints. More like drag marks, faint lines pressed into the carpet fibers. As if something heavy had been pulled across it. The younger officer crouched too. "You see that?" he asked. The older officer nodded. He stood up slowly. "We're going to open this," he said. The younger officer looked uneasy. "How?" "Key card won't work." The older officer glanced toward the stairwell. "Maintenance might have a physical key. Or the manager. We can wait." I didn't like the idea of waiting. Standing in that hallway felt like standing in a place that wasn't meant to have witnesses. The younger officer radioed again. Then the lights flickered. Just once. A quick dimming. Then back. The older officer's posture changed. He stiffened slightly, like an animal hearing something. We all stood still. And then we heard it. Not loud. Not dramatic. A sound from inside the room. A soft, steady tapping. Not on the door. From deeper inside. Like someone tapping a fingernail against glass. 4 taps. A pause. Then 4 more. The younger officer swallowed. The older one took a step back from the door. "Okay," he said, voice tight. "We're not forcing this without the manager present." He looked at me. "Let's go downstairs. Now." We walked back toward the elevator. And as we moved away, I glanced back at the door. I don't know why I did. Maybe because I needed to know if it was still closed. Maybe because my brain couldn't stop checking. The door was still shut. But the hallway camera above us, mounted high, angled down, had a tiny red light. It blinked once. Then twice. And I realized something that hit me like cold water. That camera wasn't supposed to record. It was supposed to stream only. But it was recording now. Recording us. Recording the officers. Recording me. Like it wanted proof that we'd been there. Back downstairs, the officers asked for the manager's number. I called. It went to voicemail. They left after another brief sweep of the lobby and first-floor hallways. They told me to call again if anything changed. When the lobby doors closed behind them, the hotel felt emptier than it had before. Like whatever presence I'd sensed upstairs had simply waited them out. I didn't stay. I locked the front desk cash drawer, wrote a quick note that I'd had to leave due to a security concern, and walked out. The parking lot was cold and empty. My car was still there under a flickering light. I sat inside with the doors locked and my hands on the steering wheel for a long time before I could make myself turn the key. I didn't go back the next night. I texted the manager, told him I wasn't comfortable continuing the job. He replied hours later with one sentence. "Did you go to the 4th floor?" I stared at it. Then I typed back. "Only with police." "Why is it closed?" No response. Not that day. Not the next. A week later, I drove past the hotel in the afternoon out of a kind of stubborn curiosity. There were no cars in the lot. No workers. No guests. The lobby lights were off. A printed sign was taped to the front door. Closed for maintenance. I expected relief. Instead, I felt something else. A quiet, crawling dread that settled behind my ribs. Because now I couldn't stop thinking about that feed. The one I couldn't replay. The one that distorted exactly when the man looked at the camera. The one that showed an elevator passenger who wasn't outside the elevator. The one that seemed to understand when I was watching. And the worst part was this. If that feed wasn't from any camera we owned, then why did it keep showing me exactly where to look? I've worked other jobs since then. Normal jobs. Daylight jobs. But every now and then, I'll be somewhere quiet, alone in my apartment, late at night, and I'll open an app, or a web page, or my camera roll. And I'll get this split-second feeling that something is already open. Already watching. Already waiting for me to notice. Because once you've seen a feed that shouldn't exist, it's hard to believe you're ever really off camera again.